It is the Cam Rogers Show. Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. It is September 29th, 2017, and what a program we have on tap for you folks. We're going to get to the breaking news in a matter of seconds here. We are, of course, taking you up until 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, completely live, so throw in those comments, those reactions throughout the show today. There is a lot of meat within this hour. There's no doubt about that. We have the breaking news that we'll discuss in regards to the college basketball scandal and Adidas' involvement in it. We'll have Ashley Wellington-Fahey of the Relish. She is the CEO of a new sports company geared towards female fans, so we look forward to that conversation with her. Harris Rubenstein will be coming back on the show. We'll be totem polling the top candies ever, and it's going to be an interesting list, no doubt about that. I'll have Lakers reporter Mike Trudell on the show later today as well. We'll jump to that interview pre-recorded. It's an exciting one at that. He'll talk about the Lakers and the rest of the NBA. And then, time permitting, a little final word about the NFL this coming weekend. And with that, we bring in college basketball and basically basketball insider Brian Rauf here. And the breaking news is this, folks. Reported exclusively by Chat Sports last night, Adidas attempted to influence the nation's #1 basketball recruit Zion Williamson to Kansas. This in connection with Tuesday's arrest of the director of global marketing at Adidas, James Gatto. Now, just yesterday as well, Williamson's family saying to CBS Sports 7 that no one from Adidas has approached Zion or his family, and, quote, if anyone approached the family without Zion's best interests in mind, we would simply walk away. So this is just a little example of the broad stroke, the broad story here about college basketball, bribing and recruiting, a bombshell report that came out, or really an indictment that came out just a couple of days ago. And with that, here is Brian Rauf. Brian, thanks for coming on, and tell us what we know now.
What we know is Adidas was trying to influence Zion Williamson, the top recruit or #2 recruit, depending on what service you go to in the country in the 2018 class, trying to influence him to get him to go to Kansas. His top 2 schools right now were Kansas, which is the Adidas school, and Kentucky. He plays for an AAU team called SC Supreme, based out of South Carolina, which is an Adidas school, and so he's been playing on the Adidas summer circuit. And Adidas tries to, as we've seen through this probe, has become fairly clear that Adidas tries to funnel these kids to Adidas schools, and with Zion being the #1 prospect in the country and Kansas being really the top Adidas basketball school, it kind of makes perfect sense that they would try and get him to Lawrence.
No, I think the interesting statement from the family here, Brian, is that no one from Adidas has approached Zion or his family. And I ask you this here. So do you know if there has been any coordination between Kansas and Adidas, or has this been a whole Adidas thing themselves?
The only part we can confirm right now is that this has been just an Adidas thing. And we know through court documents and people I've talked to and different sources and the way business has been done in college basketball recruiting really for the past 20 years, that this is something that Adidas and other shoe companies, specifically Adidas and Nike, tend to do. Now, we know with facts with Adidas has been doing this from the FBI probe. Nike will see if anything comes out about them. Their grassroots youth basketball league, the EYBL, Elite Youth Basketball League, was raided by the FBI on Wednesday. So more information about them will come out, I assume, in the coming days and weeks, however long the FBI takes to go through this stuff. Right now, it just seems to be an Adidas thing. Kansas may be involved. As we saw the Louisville thing, Rick Pitino and Louisville coaching staff was able to have direct contact with the Adidas officials, basically say, hey, we need your help with this guy. We don't know if that's the case with Kansas. That's just purely speculation at this point. All we know is that Adidas has been trying to get him to go to Kansas.
And it seems as though we're going to continue to break stories such as these, Brian. In many words, the tip of the iceberg. So I ask you this. We do know that Zion is planning on visiting Kansas this weekend. Any word about if he is still doing that? And what do you think that's going to be like given these transgressions?
As far as we know, he's still going. He has not announced that he is not going. I don't think his reception there is going to change at all. Kansas is one of the craziest basketball fan bases in the country, just in terms of their passion and love for their team. And anytime that you get a top recruit like that on campus, they're going to show him as much love as possible to try to get him to come there, whether there's Adidas money involved or not. From Kansas's perspective, especially from their fans, they're going to do everything they can to woo him and sell him on playing at Kansas for probably 1 year.
And Zion is the #1 2018 recruit, according to 24/7 Sports, Brian. Heavily pursued by the likes of Kentucky, UCLA, South Carolina. I want to get your thoughts on this. Do you think that there is some ammo here for Kentucky and UCLA to point to this report and kind of possibly influence Zion to go to them? Because, hey, look, Zion, do you want that PR nightmare, playing for Kansas with this kind of surfacing over you? Do you think that it would be a play by some of the recruiters at the other schools?
For sure. Now, there's basically every school in the country is trying to get involved with Zion. Kansas and Kentucky are the two favorites. Sort of on the fringes are the South Carolina State schools of South Carolina and Clemson. The big North Carolina schools, Duke and UNC, are involved. UCLA also involved as well, getting an official visit. But it's essentially down to Kansas and Kentucky for him. One of those other schools is going to have to make some sort of crazy run over this next year and have him in for an official visit and really wow him. So this is something that Kentucky could use. I could see towards Adidas, whether it's this report or just all of the Adidas stuff in general, wanting to be associated with that. Schools will try to use that. That's a tactic in recruiting, and I'm sure Zion and his family are thinking about that as well. If they want to go through this Adidas stuff, even if there's stuff that they don't know, potential school sanctions on schools, on Adidas schools, if more stuff comes out down the road.
And if you're just tuning in here on the Cam Rogers Show, folks, the breaking news this morning: Adidas attempted to influence the nation's #1 basketball recruit Zion Williams to go to Kansas. This possibly in connection with the arrest of James Gatto of Adidas just a couple of days ago. Brian Rauf reporting on this on our Chat Sports website. We have Brian right here to talk more about it. Brian, certainly a story that falls in line with a larger narrative, right? And, of course, you can't help but think of Brian Bowen and what's going on with Louisville right now, how Rick Pitino, perhaps out, administrative leave, as they're saying right now, but essentially fired, and Brian Bowen suspended indefinitely here for perhaps taking $100,000 worth of payment to go to play for Louisville. Is the extent of Adidas' influence with Williams similar to what we saw with Bowen, or do we just not know for sure yet?
We just don't know. Now, you would assume Bowen was the number 19 overall recruit in the 2017 class, and Williamson's the #1 guy. I don't know if they would try and come in and swoop in with a huge cash payment to get Bowen to go to an Adidas school. Bowen was down to Michigan State and Arizona, two Nike schools, in his recruitment before he suddenly decided to attend Louisville, an Adidas school. So that huge cash payment to him may have been Adidas's one last swoop to deter him from going to a Nike school and going to an Adidas school. With Zion, he's already considering an Adidas school. We've talked about it being Kansas and Kentucky for him, essentially an Adidas versus Nike war. I don't know. We don't know if there was similar cash payments. Williamson's family has denied having any contact with Adidas, and in turn would deny, any talks about money from Adidas. So they're a bit different situations for both of them. I think this would have been something in terms of money that would have been talked about further down the road when Williamson got ready to make his commitment. So I think this was sort of in the initial stages, from what we've gathered, of Adidas trying to get him to Kansas, and it didn't really get to develop the way we saw Bowen's develop and some other prospects develop because of this FBI probe.
And, of course, Zion Williamson at the center of this all. It is indeed Williamson. My apologies, folks, if I did say Williams a couple times there earlier. Brian, I'll ask you this here. You got to wonder if Gatto is the common denominator among the stories that have come out and the stories that are going to continue to come out. Is it fair to say that Gatto is at the center of many of these transgressions?
It certainly seems that way. He's the head of global marketing for basketball for Adidas, and so the fact that he is involved in this tells you that he gets involved with most of the high-profile guys. And because of his high-ranking position with Adidas as an executive, there's got to be countless other smaller players essentially in this guys of Adidas in smaller roles also having some sort of influence on kids like this. So I think Gatto might be, as we say with this thing, just tip of the iceberg. I'm sure he's involved with a lot of the major players, but it wouldn't surprise me if there are many more Adidas reps who are wrapped up in this as well.
And I got a little philosophical question for you here, Brian, because, of course, this is a very large story, and federal officials are calling this the dark underbelly of college basketball right now. How much darker has the belly gotten after this report?
It's not. I mean, this is for those who know college basketball and recruiting. This is the way business has been done for 20 years. It started in the 80s when shoe companies started reaching agreements with coaches to have them wear their gear, and then that branched out to schools. And then an effort to get kids to develop some brand loyalty at a younger age, they started developing summer basketball camps, and that has now morphed into these summer basketball leagues and circuits where if you're on a Nike team, you play only on the Nike circuit with your Nike team, and that Nike team will try and funnel you to a Nike school. Same thing with Adidas. You play on the Adidas circuit for an Adidas team, and they try and funnel you to an Adidas school. Now, there are players that switch, and this is really only mostly for the highest profile players, but this is the way business has been done. And this FBI probe is essentially shining a light on that dark underbelly. The NCAA has had their suspicions about this and has known about it for somewhat, but didn't have necessarily the resources or the motivation to go after this because it's such a widespread thing and would really harm their sport, as we're seeing with the FBI now. So the only thing this is going to do is clean some of this up. Will there probably be some lingering dealings with shoe companies in this? Yes, I think it's going to be impossible to completely cut them out of this whole recruitment process with kids the way things are set up now, but it's certainly started to clean things up.
Okay, there you have it. Brian Rauf, our basketball insider here on Chat Sports. Of course, Brian, great reporting, and you'll update as you see fit. Thanks so much for coming on.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right, there you have it. Quite a story, folks, here. The #1 recruit, according to 24/7 Sports, Zion Williamson, a fantastic player, and is at the center of a bit of a scandal, it appears, where Adidas attempting to influence Zion to go play for Kansas and Adidas school. Certainly quite a story, and we'll continue to monitor that. Stay tuned on chatsports.com for those details. We're going to hit a break here on the Cam Rogers Show. Coming up on the other side, we've got Ashley Wellington-Fahey, the CEO of the Relish. Looking forward to that chat. Stick around. It's the Cam Rogers Show. And welcome back to the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. We have Ashley Wellington-Fahey, the founder and CEO of The Relish, a 360 sports media brand that caters to female fans through authentic storytelling and reporting. Really cool stuff. Ashley, we appreciate you jumping on the program. How are we doing?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, The Relish, not to be confused with the condiment that goes on hamburgers, of course. So I want you to shed some light on this really cool company here. You kickstarted it not too long ago. How's it grown since then? And tell us a little about the company as a whole.
Yeah, it's been a pretty wild journey. We've been a company for over a year and a half, but we've really been in the market with some of the things that we've been doing on video programming side since March. So it's been a crazy just 2017 for us, but the whole catalyst around why I wanted to build the Relish had a lot to do with my own experience having worked in sports, but also having been a sports fan since I was a little girl, and always kind of running up against this issue of often not being seen as enough of a fan if I didn't subscribe to being a fan in the same way that men are sometimes treated as fans. So I really wanted to, tackle, no pun intended, the stigmas that exist for female fans in a way that hasn't really been done before. So that was sort of why I wanted to do the Relish, and then it came down to, okay, well, how do we do this? So one of the big efforts that we focus on is around original video programming and meeting female fans where they currently spend their time. A lot of that is inside of their social environments, meeting them before and after the game out in the real world, and thinking about all the other environments where we can talk to female fans, empower female fans with a bigger voice in sports, and offer them content that's not really out there currently in the sports ecosystem.
Now, your story is interesting here, Ashley. So you majored in elementary education, and now you're a successful executive for a company. Ashley, how did we get here? Give me the story.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I'm glad that you noticed that, because I'm out there talking to tons of investors and having all these big, powerful meetings, and nobody ever notices that. But I actually grew up telling people that I really wanted to work in sports. Sports broadcasting was the thing I used to say I wanted to do. And I was 10, 11 at the time, and at that time there were very few women working in sports. And so the message that I was told, even verbally by people, was, hey, there's that's awesome, cool goal, but there's not really room for you. There's no, that's not a place where you're going to have job security. That's not the path you should go. And I was a little girl. I listened to that message and I thought, okay, well, what do I want to do? Well, there's another side of me that, is really passionate about education, and it's fundamentally important for people. So I went the path of becoming a teacher, but I had never lost that desire to work in sports. So I actually took a history of baseball class my senior year of college, and that was when I was like, oh no, wrong. I did it all wrong. I should have gone into sports. And very serendipitously, after I graduated, I actually did go on to become a teacher for a year. But I had come across somebody who had this entry-level job with the Seattle Mariners radio broadcast, and I interviewed for the role. I actually didn't get it, but I stayed in touch with people, and long story short, I did end up working for the Mariners broadcast partner as their radio coordinator. So I did end up breaking into sports. The message I'd been told very young was, actually, there's no opportunity here, do something else. And then that just paved the way for understanding what was going on in the industry and the opportunities that exist.
Well, there you go, and I'm sure that a lot of people know that you wanted to be the Katie Couric of the Seattle Mariners. Am I wrong there?
No, that's exactly what I used to tell people. As a little girl or little person, they'll ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I would say, I want to be the Katie Couric of the Mariners. And Shannon Dreyer is, and there's a couple people, Jen Mueller, there's a few others up there. They're kind of that for the Mariners in Seattle, but at the time there wasn't a female voice for, I don't know if there were any female voices specifically for teams at the time, and there weren't for the Seattle team. So that was my big ambition as a little girl, but I went on to instead start my own company.
And with that, of course, you attended some pretty cool summits here, the Twitter Sports PR Summit and the Bloomberg Players Technology Summit. A lot of star power in those two events there, Steph Curry, Jay Williams, Bonnie Bernstein. So I ask you this, how was that experience for you, and how are you using what you learned and applying that to your company right now?
Yeah, they were surreal experiences and something we were so grateful to be a part of. I think it also calls attention to how long overdue this message in the industry is, and having somebody staking their claim and saying, we're talking to women, unapologetically, we're going to do this head on. So it was great to be there. It was really neat to just see these athletes in different, unique environments and hear a message from them that extended far beyond just the field or the court or, whatever environment that they're playing in. And I think that the biggest thing for us that those experiences gave us was a lot of validation, because a lot of the things we've sort of gone out to market and discovered and also felt intuitively was that there's more to the story than just the game and what's happening inside of the game. And we know that for at least the audience of female fans we're targeting, that's a really important part of the connection. So a lot of it was about validation for us, and saying, not only do we know that fans want these stories, but also the athletes want to be telling unique stories as well, and not just always getting the same, why did that happen, or why did you do that, or how do you feel about that play, or how do you feel about that person. They want, these are people that we look at on the regular. They're in our homes, on our televisions, and we know nothing about them. And I think they want to be able to tell more of that story. And part of what the Relish does is enables that conversation to happen.
And there's no doubt about it that having success in this industry is connecting with your audience. And I ask you this, have you talked with the female demographic lately about how they receive your company, the Relish, and what they feel about it?
Yeah, I think a lot of what we're doing is enabling conversation with female fans. So we're talking to female fans all the time. And I think because we are more of a social first company, we have the opportunity to do that in real time, with the content that we're putting out to market. If you're asking, do we go out to do market studies and talk to female fans, that's like a totally different business objective, and we do that as well. But I would say that the core part of what we're doing is having those conversations with female fans on the street, online, all of these environments that are important for us. We're out there having conversations and gathering information.
And I think one of the big drivers of media these days is social media, right? The ability to go viral is so easy, it seems, if you have the right stuff, have the right content. Do you guys use social media to a really high extent as part of your company brand? And what do you usually apply when you use social media?
Yeah, social media is I mentioned it before, we really see ourselves as currently a social first company. So if you go to therelish.com, it's a pretty basic site. There's not anything too glamorous going on there at this time. It's really just driving you back to where our social environments currently are. So, we know that that's where people currently spend their time, and the audience that we're going, trying to have a conversation with, that's where they are. So social is a fundamentally important part of what we do. And the core part of what we're putting out to market is video programming. So we have a ton of different show concepts that are out in the market. They range from some of these short form, here's the latest thing you need to know, what's going on in sports, super quick and easy, to actually going in and having conversations with female fans about all the cross sections of interests that center around sports.
Now, I got to ask you about you being a Seattle Seahawks fan here. I hate to do this to you, but I'm going back to the Super Bowl. Goal line play and Malcolm Butler, the rest. First of all, what went through your mind after that play? And then kind of compare that to that dominating performance against Peyton Manning and the Broncos in that other Super Bowl.
Oh my God, yes, I love this question. I love the second part of the question.
Exactly.
So the Super Bowl we try not to talk about. I took my boyfriend, who is not a sports fan, believe it or not, down to Phoenix for the Super Bowl. I was so just high on life this whole weekend. Tickets were insanely expensive, so we didn't actually end up going to the game, but we went to this super cool Seahawks bar, and we're sitting in the bar, and it's all Seahawks fans. There was one Patriots fan there, and I'll never forget just sitting in front of there. We were you felt it. It was right there. Everybody was just silence, and smiles on their faces, and then that play happened, and it was the most soul-crushing. All the feelings that you could possibly feel just came over us all at one time. And no one could talk to each other. No one could look at each other. My boyfriend had tears in his eyes, he's not even a sports fan. And he was he was so overwhelmed by the emotion of everybody else. I had tears in my eyes. I mean, I couldn't talk for like an hour. It was terrible. But on a positive note, going back to the Super Bowl that we did win, that was awesome too. I flew home to Seattle for that and was in a bar by CenturyLink with all my friends. And it was like kind of surreal because I mean, that if you remember that game, we blew it out very early on. So it was like pretty. Early, yeah. It was pretty clear. Yeah, it was like all of us were really superstitious. We were like, don't say it. There was a little humility there, but so when we won, it was like, yeah, but we kind of already been celebrating for the last like quarter or two. There were lots of Skittles. I'll never forget, like, I ran through the streets of Seattle with all my friends, and it was like everybody just loved each other. It was like, I remember walking through and we were like, we made friends with everyone, like the homeless community around Seattle, like everybody was just fun in that night, and it was such a special experience, and so many Skittles on the ground. It was, you probably don't need to eat Skittles anymore after that Super Bowl.
Feed the man the Skittles. I'm sorry to bring up that moment, but you know what? We all have them. I remember as a Ravens fan, Billy Cundiff against the Patriots, wide left. Oh, that was tough for me to watch. And then I get roasted by my friends in high school, and because I'm from New England, so it was a rough day across the halls, if you will.
But I think you bring up a good point because like this is the connection point that sports fans have, and right. Oftentimes it's about competition, but like at the root of sports there is connection, and there is this communal effect that spans beyond just like your team and my team. Like we have this shared experience of crushing heartbreak, and that's something that I think when we're doing content, like we know is relevant, that we want to highlight a little bit more of, that can connect in with our fan base.
Absolutely. And speaking of content, finally here, Ashley, what can we expect from the Relish going forward here?
Yeah, so we had a really big year. We raised funding. We're back out in the market doing some other big things. 2018 is going to be a huge year for expansion of our video content. You're going to be seeing us in more places around the digital streaming environments. And we're going to be expanding a few more exciting things that we're to offer female fans, even just beyond the video programming space. So be on the lookout for some fun initiatives next year.
Stay tuned, folks. There you go. Ashley Wellington-Fahey of The Relish. Check it out, therelish.com. Some great stuff over there. Ashley, appreciate you jumping on the show. Best of luck to you, and talk soon.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.
All right. There you have it. Great stuff there from Ashley Wellington-Fahey of The Relish. And we are going to hit a break here on the Cam Rogers Show. It's totem pole time, power ranking the best candies ever with Harris Rubenstein. Stick around. Welcome back to the Cam Rogers Show, bottom of the hour, 10:30 on the East Coast. And
What's going on?
Aaron Rubenstein here alongside. We're going to be doing a little totem pole action.
Very excited.
Power ranking the best candies ever. You wanted to do candy bars, but I had to expand a little bit.
That's fair, because again, like I explained, candy bars can be candies. However, not all candies are candy bars.
That's a discussion for another day.
There you go.
But this is an exciting list here, Harris, and I will say we have a couple of agreements towards the
Finally,
top.
it's the first time I think that we've ever agreed on anything.
So we'll go with my number 5, your number 5, then down the line that way. So here's my number 5. Top candies ever. Twizzlers, the cherry kind.
Okay.
The peel. I mean, it's so much better than the strawberry flavor. But I was so mad all the time when they didn't have them at the movies.
I gotta say, I'm not the biggest Twizzlers fan, but I'm very happy that you have them on this list because so many people love Twizzlers. I know that I'm kind of in the minority, but I've never actually had a cherry Twizzler, so I'll have to take your word for it. Never had one before. Again, Twizzlers and me just do not get along. We've never been friends.
Wow, that's a sad story.
I know. Licorice and me are not friends.
The pull and peel is fantastic. My routine when I went to the movies, it used to be at least, large Diet Coke, popcorn, Twizzlers. Back in my tubby days.
Awesome.
So there you go. Let's go to your number 5,
Yes.
Harris. Hershey's Cookies and Cream.
Oh
Never
yeah,
had this
a
one.
very underrated candy bar. Absolutely unbelievable. So delicious that they turned it, like, you know, little Hershey Drops things that they came out with. The cookies and cream one are far and away the best. All of the Hershey's Cookies and Cream candies that they've come up with the past couple years are absolutely unbelievable.
What about accessibility to get that kind of bar? I feel like it's kind of specialized, hard to get.
You'll find, you know what, most CVS's that you walk into, they'll have one, a little bit of Walgreens action for, I don't know, is Walgreens a thing in Texas?
I think it is.
Is it a thing? I'm not really sure. But no, Hershey's Cookies and Cream bars are top of the line. But again, number 5, a little more of a personal preference there.
Okay, here's my number 4 coming in.
I forgot about Swedish
fish. Absolutely fantastic. The one caveat, they stick to your teeth, Harry.
Yes, no, very much so. And I gotta say, only the red ones are good. Hot take. I can't eat the assorted kind. I can only eat the red kind.
That's like you with or somebody with Skittles were like, oh, I can't eat the green.
No.
They all taste the same.
And also, not to mention, the box that just comes with the red ones is way more popular than the assorted ones. Like, I feel like you just see that more often.
You see more of the red ones.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So I think maybe I'm just programmed because, like, usually whenever I eat Swedish fish, it only has red ones in there.
All right, Harris, I can't agree with this one. Here's your number 4. Sour Patch Kids. I'm not a sour guy. I like sweet.
I'm making an amendment to this. I was tricked into Sour Patch Kids. I actually prefer Sour Patch watermelons over Sour Patch Kids.
Here we go with the flavor specific.
Yes, again, no, I've always been a fan of the Sour Patch watermelons, but I had Sour Patch Kids on there because, like, it's just the company in general. The company is a high-quality candy company, but the watermelons are superior.
You're a big commercial guy, too. Do you like their commercials?
I used to like the commercials. The best one was when the girl came home late, and they like went the alarm off, but then they brought her a little sweater. And the little guys just look so cute. So you can't be too mad at them.
Oh, sour than sweet. That's
Yes,
the mantra
exactly.
there. Here's my number 3. Nobody really talks about this one. Mike and Ike's are really good. In fact, they're king of jelly beans.
Solid candy. They're just solid. They always get the job done. The flavors are consistent. It's always good. I have to say, like, if you're gonna choose between jelly beans and Mike and Ike's, I'm probably gonna go on a little more toward jelly beans. However, a box of Mike and Ike's in front of me, I will eat the box.
Okay, so like nostalgic moment here. So like when I would be like in daycare, my mom would be going to the gym. She put me in the daycare there. There was always like one of those crates where you put like a quarter in and you can get some candy out of it. There were always Mike and Ike's in there. And I always wanted the Mike and Ike's. Like I always got them at the end of the day.
And you know, and again, it's very consistent candy. It kind of reminds, or I guess in a couple different ways. It's like Starburst. Like they're just very consistent candies. You always know what you're gonna get. Because like, you know, sometimes the problem with chocolate, they melt or like this. And also, a great thing about Mike and Ike's, they aren't nearly as sticky as other candies.
No.
Which is very, very important if we're talking about Mike and Ike's.
You want to know a cool thing about Mike and Ike's, by the way? If you suck on them for a while, they lose the color and they're like clear jelly beans.
No, they just look like...
I used to love doing that.
They're just the sugar. It's just like the sugar that's left.
Yeah,
They're kind of funky looking.
All right, here's your number 3, Harris. Again, there's just not much to this.
But there doesn't need to be anything to it.
So,
that's what
like,
makit them so good. Is that
so airy?
No, but that's what makes it so good. When you just want something in the middle of the day that's sweet with a little bit of crunch, but Kit Kat it's perfect. Not to mention, it's one of the best sharing candies because hey. Like, I know the break me off piece of that Kit Kat bar, but whenever people want a piece of Kit Kat bar, you just give them a piece. But I will say this. If you open up a Kit Kat bar and just take a bite, you, sir, are dead to me. If you every Kit Kat
As
bar,
in don't finish it?
No. When you're eating Kit Kat bar, it must be broken off into a piece and then eaten. The people who open up a Kit Kat bar and just take a munch out of it, they are the devil.
I do that.
You should not. That is not how you eat a Kit Kat bar. You break it up. It is segmented in 4 perfect rows so that they can easily be snacked off and eaten slowly, not eaten like a monster. They are a delicate candy. Eat them with respect.
Now we're talking about classiness with candy. All
ridiculous.
right. Moving on to number 2. This is where we connect here,
Yay.
Harris. So I have Snickers. I mean, you can't compete with this bar. Now, I used to not be a nut guy. So I used to be Milky Way only. But then I became a nut guy, and then I moved over to Snickers.
No, Snickers is the best. Snickers is number 1. And then do what the funny thing is. You want to know how you can always know like what the best candies are. So you know when they like pour like the big bag of assorted candies like out, and they have like this like 3 Musketeers, Milky Way, Snickers, like all the Hershey's and whatnot. Snickers has always gone first.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's the Milky Ways, and then always at the bottom because no likes them. Are the 3 Musketeers bar. They're always the one at the bottom that people are like, I don't really want a 3 Musketeers. They're always the one at the bottom. But
Yeah,
Snickers,
the Musketeers stink. It's one thing, one
boring.
thing only. It's nougat or whatever it's
at
called.
least the great thing about Kit Kat bars is that there's a crunch to it. The nougat is just like, it's not great. So it's kind of boring. But we're on board with Snickers. Snickers at number 2 is
Snickers
a
is a combination of, would you say, Milky Way and 3
Greatness.
Musketeers? And
It's like if you took a Milky Way and made it amazing. That's how what happens. You get a Snickers. You add caramel, you add peanuts and the wafer and the nougat and the chai. It's the best candy bar. Like, it's the number 1 candy bar out there. Like, you're not going to find it better than anything than Snickers.
All right, and Harris, we agree on our number 1, too.
Yes.
The best candy ever, M&M's. You can't compete with these.
Has to be because think
They're
about
so
it.
good.
They're so versatile.
They are.
They got the chocolate version, you got the pretzel version, the crispy version, the peanut version, the dark chocolate version, the peanut butter version, and they're
Which is
all
your
amazing.
favorite?
Oh,
Classic?
Oh, that's so difficult. What is my favorite M&M? All right. I'm very prone to the crispy ones, but I don't know if they even make them anymore, but the pretzel M&Ms were just unbelievable. I might be in the minority there, but I'm big on the pretzels.
Thinking back to my Tubby days again, I would love to just throw a big handful on the side of my cheek, Harris. Just let it sit there and suck on it.
Like a big old thing of dip, but of M&M.
but it's M&M's.
The best thing about though is that when I was a kid, I used to always like pour out the M&Ms onto a table and I would arrange them by color I still actually do
you're
that.
weird like that.
And I still actually do that because I'm 5 years old.
Of
But
course you do.
it's super funny. You arrange them in little colors. Got the brown, the yellow, the red, the green. It's all great. I love it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want you weighing in. What is the best candy ever? Do we have any snubs out there? We have a commenter, Richard Allen Harris Jr. saying, you used to love sucking on Mike and Ike. I mean, yeah, I guess
This is
I
a
did.
morning show.
This is a family breakfast show, Richard. Okay, Tom Dowdy chiming in, quote, I used to not be a nut guy. Phrasing, that's important. I'm glad you didn't point that out, but I guess Tom had to.
This is a PG-13 show.
PG-13. Here's the recaps here. This is my top 5. M&M's, Snickers, Mike and Ike, Swedish Fish, Twizzlers. Any big disagreements there, Harris?
Again, I can't hate on Twizzlers because like it's just like not my thing, but I understand that more people than just me are fans of candy and very much like Twizzlers. But I will say this, kind of surprised by the lack of chocolate that you have on here because I still claim that chocolate is the king of the candy.
I would say that too. That's why I have chocolate up top there.
That's fair,
but I
that's fair.
couldn't forget some of these sweet things that I really love to eat
That's
back
fair.
in the day.
I would switch Swedish Fish and Mike and Ike personally for 3 and 4.
Fair enough.
Put them on
Fair
top
enough.
of it.
Let's move on to Harris's top 5. Again, we agreed on the top 2, M&M's and Snickers. You had Kit Kat, Sour Patch Kids, Hershey's Cookies and Cream. How about regular Hershey's? Does that fall in the top 10?
It does. It's just, again, it's difficult to compare because like Hershey's chocolate's really good. It's all really normal. But at the end of the day, it's just like a normal chocolate bar. Like if you're looking for like just normal, like what's the best milk chocolate bar, it is still Hershey's. But I will say this, shout out to my honorable mention. I was getting a lot of hate on this yesterday. You want to talk about movie candies? Bunch of Crunch. Shout out to Bunch of Crunch. The Bunch of Crunch stuff, you get the, oh man, it's amazing. So it's like a Crunch bar in like little bitty things. And what you do is that you go to movie theater, you get a box of it, you can put it into the popcorn. So you have like popcorn plus like chocolate plus like it's like a Crunch bar, but like little bits inside of popcorn. It's unbelievable. It's the best movie candy.
How about
100%.
an underrated snub here? Take 5 bar.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Take 5.
Absolutely, because again,
That's everything.
The rebranding that they've done recently, got peanut butter, pretzel, chocolate, little nougat. It's nuts. Take 5 bars are prime time. I agree. That's a good one.
All right, there you have it. Of course, weigh in throughout the show with your favorite candies, perhaps the ones we missed out on. For Harris Rubenstein and Cam, this is the Totem Pole segment. Thank you, Harris, for jumping on the program.
Happy to be here as always.
There you go. We'll hit a quick break here on the show. Coming up on the other side, we got Mike Trudell, Lakers reporter. Stick around. Welcome back to the Cam Rogers Show. It is time to toss to my interview with Lakers reporter Mike Trudell. Really a fun conversation. Let's take a listen. All right, folks, Cam Rogers here. As promised, we have Mike Trudell, Lakers reporter. You've seen him on the court side in L.A., and of course, he is a host on ESPN Radio L.A. as well. Mike, appreciate the time, sir. How we doing?
Cam, happy to be here with you, buddy. What's happening? What can we do for you in your world of sports?
Oh, well, let me tell you, we have some late breaking news. I'm sure you talked about it on the show today. And what's going on across the college basketball sphere right now in terms of some corruption and fraud charges with 4 assistant coaches. Mike, I just got to ask you your initial reactions to this.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's not shock and awe. Okay, this is not the first time that we've heard of college basketball coaches or shoe company executives or really anybody in the satellite industry that have taken bribes or that have done some under-the-table dealings. This has been part of the business. And the reason is because that we still try to pretend that the NCAA is an amateur industry, and it's not. There are millions of dollars at stake constantly. And look, my radio partner, Michael Thompson, we always joke around with him going back into the 70s about how Minnesota had to hand him a stack of bills to get him to go play for the Gophers. Now, I know that this isn't necessarily that same thing where it's just a quote unquote bribe to bring a player to somewhere, but the shoe companies are essentially having major influences on which players go where. And I think when the stuff gets uncovered, especially if it's official like the FBI, it just shines the light on something that we all kind of know has been happening anyway. And therefore, spare me if I don't feel super outraged about this, even though it's something that, sure, is it right? Technically, no. But it's also not something that's a big surprise, Cam.
Yeah, quite a statement from the DA as well, saying how dark college basketball is right now. So, of course, we'll see how things unfold in regards to that story. Let's get to another bombshell report, if you will, Mike, in regards to Carmelo Anthony. He's going out west towards you, Oklahoma City Thunder. What were your initial reactions to that big trade?
Well, it's definitely interesting. I already had the Thunder as probably the second best or at worst the third best, kind of right there with Houston, depending on how Chris Paul integrates with James Harden. And in this case, depending on how Carmelo now will integrate with Paul George and Russell Westbrook. I think that that's a lot of high-end talent on both teams, both still a ring below the Warriors. So it's still the Warriors are the clear favorites to me. And most likely, I would say that Houston and Oklahoma City are going to have to play each other in that 2-3 matchup, depending on if the Spurs do what they usually do, right, and get in there with their regular season wins. But I think it makes the West just that much better, except we still think Golden State's going to get there to the finals and probably play Cleveland again. It adds some drama. It adds some fun. It's interesting. I feel in some senses good for Melo. It's also good for the Knicks to just get a fresh start. Realize they didn't get a lot of backhand, but they at least now have fewer long-term commitments financially. They're going to be bad. They're going to get another high lottery pick to pair with Porzingis this year. So it makes sense that the deal would be done as it was. So what did you think of it?
Well, I certainly think there is a power shift going on right now, Mike, in the NBA. It adds a little wrinkle, as you said, to the West Conference, and for the Knicks, perhaps a turn of the page. So I think it was a win-win situation for both sides here. And I want to go Lakers specific with my next question, Mike. There's got to be a lot of Lonzo mania going on right now in sunny LA. What is the excitement like in regards to Mr. Ball playing for the Lakers?
Well, you nailed it. There's a ton of excitement. I haven't seen fans this excited about a player's debut really in my time here since 2008. I've now been covering the Lakers. This is my 10th year covering the team. And sure, there was always excitement about Kobe, and rightfully so. And particularly that last season, it was chaos basically the entire time. But in terms of a young prospect coming in, the Lakers have had D'Angelo Russell, they've had Brandon Ingram, but the Lonzo effect is just so much different from that. And it's not, of course, just because of his basketball talent and all of the flashes that he showed at Summer League and the fact that he has a pretty good chance of getting Rookie of the Year honors. It's also just because of what has come with it, with his family, with his father, LeVar, with his brothers, with the fact that UCLA is around the corner from Staples Center. So all of this stuff has played into this buildup of excitement. We just have to remember that what really matters is how he plays on the court. And so all the excitement, that's been great. It's been fun. It's been interesting. But how Lonzo plays basketball is ultimately what's going to make the big difference here. And he's off to a good start if you ask anybody that's been around the Lakers building this summer in terms of how well he's been playing. But, of course, that changes when you go against other NBA players, and that's what we're going to get to see this week. I mean, it started, man. Today is the first day. In fact, right behind me right now, I'm in the Lakers office. On the court about 100 yards away from me is their first practice. So it'll be good to get in there and see how things went.
There you go, your first taste of practice time, Mike. And, of course, we talked about the Golden State Warriors briefly, how they are presumed supreme out west right now. But let's talk about the Lakers' prospects to perhaps make a playoff push next year. Do you see it?
Well, look, so for this year, Lonzo, if you ask him or if you ask some of the other players, of course, playoffs is going to be their goal. But this is a stacked Western Conference. They're a young team. It will be difficult. Las Vegas certainly isn't going to pick the Lakers to make the playoffs this year. Doesn't mean they shouldn't go for it, and they will, but it's going to be a tough task. As for next year, of course, a lot of that depends on what happens in free agency. And Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka have been very clear that they have set things up so that the Lakers have a couple of spots available, right, to potentially recruit some free agents. And that's, of course, what they're going to try to do. Now, which players they end up getting, that's going to probably determine, right, how good they're going to be. So it's tough to say right now, but the shell of where they're trying to get to is looking pretty good for what the Lakers have.
Certainly seems as though that foundation is there. That's why I'm giving them that one-year buffer a little bit there, Mike. We'll see what happens going forward. Let's go back to the NBA sphere as a general whole here, and I want to go to the Kyrie Irving, LeBron James situation, Mike. Of course, Kyrie going on First Take saying that he didn't need LeBron's permission to go out and ask for a trade. And I want to ask you, is this really a non-story here, or do you think there actually is a rift between Kyrie and LeBron right now?
There's something there, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean the end of the world. I'm sure you have certain friends that you're closer with than others. I don't know if you have siblings. Cam, do you have siblings?
I do.
Okay, do you have older or younger?
Both older.
Okay, so you as the baby in the family, I'm guessing either, I don't know if is it brothers or sisters? Who's
one sister, one brother, and yes, I was a pain to both of them.
There you go. So now that doesn't mean that they don't love you. Okay, but that probably means that they got annoyed. I don't know if you were the anointed one by your parents or you were the ambitious one. Like I'm a middle child, and there were times where I had conflict with my brother, but we still loved each other, and we still do now. And so I think this is when you're this close in a working relationship with somebody. I'm sure there are certain things about LeBron that Kyrie that rubbed him the wrong way. At the same time, I don't think he would want to trade playing with LeBron, who helped him win his ring. So there are a lot of dynamics, but the one that was clear, and you heard it if you listened to LeBron's press conference, when he referred to Kyrie as a kid about 17 times, that's one of those elements where you think, okay, Kyrie wanted to go and try to be his own man somewhere. He wanted to go try to be number one, and he couldn't do that in Cleveland. We get it, but it doesn't mean that it's this crazy beef where they're gonna write diss tracks on each other like Tupac and Biggie back in the day. And now I'm dating myself with my hip hop references, as you can tell, it's in the '90s.
No, Mike, actually, that's fantastic. I'm all about mid-2000s, maybe 90s too, a little hip-hop action, a little Young Dro, a little Fat Joe. I love that stuff, so I'm glad you brought up that reference there.
Did you just say Fat Joe?
Oh, yeah.
He had a couple tracks, but come on, that can't be. If you're going mid-2000s, at least give me Jay-Z and Kanye or something.
Okay.
Don't go first to Fat Joe. What are you doing here?
What about a little Terror Squad, a little Lean Back? Come on, those are some hits.
That was all right. Yeah, that was okay. I'm just saying, if you're looking for some real true hip hop pioneers that would have had some influence over a young man as yourself, I would have just expected somebody with a larger catalog than the Terror Squad.
Yeah, okay, that's fair, Mike. That's very fair. Trust me, I get roasted among my friends for my obsession for somewhat fringe rappers from those days, but I digress.
I can see why.
Let's move on to your career here, Mike. Absolutely a fantastic resume to this point, and you were actually and have been involved in the sports play-by-play camps, those summer camps that go on, Jeremy Treatment and all. I actually remember going to one as a freshman in high school. What has that experience been like, being kind of a guest there to help out young broadcasters such as myself back in the day to really make it happen in the industry?
Well, look, it's nice of you to say. First of all, thank you. That was my first year going to one of those camps, and as I was there speaking to these kids, I just remember thinking, like, man, this would have been awesome for me to do when I was that age, because I was just a huge sports fan. That was kind of, I played sports. I played a college sport, but I grew up mostly just as a fan of watching these games on TV and watching the broadcasters. And so it was cool for me to be on that side of it and see all the passion in these kids and to realize what a major industry it is, and for how much farther along these kids are than when I was that age. My high school didn't have a broadcasting department. There was no way to do any radio or audio or podcast, or there was no internet when I was in school. Really, like there was some. You had the teachers may have had email, but nobody in the '90s, nobody was really using it to a great extent yet. So I think that what's cool about somebody like you who's now doing a show live on camera, that was just not something that was available 15, 20 years ago. And you can tell now that with the sports world and the proliferation of it, I think the talent for younger people growing up in broadcasting is going to be higher than it was for somebody that came up when I did. And it's really cool to see.
Certainly a changing industry at that. Final question here, Mike. You were a part of Kobe life, and now you're a part of post-Kobe life. What has that transition been like for you?
Well, I will always miss watching Kobe play. There was something special about the way that he approached each and every game, each time that he took the floor. And look, this is one of the top 5 or 6 players of all time that we got a chance to see. And I saw, of course, his first 2 titles without Shaq were my first 2 years here covering the Lakers. So I miss the basketball element of it. I also miss talking to Kobe post-game. There are a few athletes, and certainly none that I've ever covered, that are as smart and as eloquent as he is. And that's something that is just really hard to find, where somebody that's that impactful as an athlete, but also is just generally smart, and you can go and talk to, whether it's learning about the screen roll or talking to about fatherhood or hip hop. Hip hop was one of the things we covered, and he would be ashamed of the fact that you mentioned Fat Joe instead of mentioning, as I mentioned earlier, some of the more historic rappers. And all of that stuff with Kobe, I will miss. But now, look, what the Lakers are trying to do. Kobe's still around, right? He's very tight with Rob Pelinka, who's the general manager. Of course, his agent for so many years. He's very tight with Magic Johnson. He's very tight with Jeannie Buss. Those are the 3 most important people in the Lakers organization. And he's really tight with Luke Walton, who's probably the 4th. So Kobe will still have his presence felt here, but now it's time to let these young kids go. It's time to see how Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram and Julius Randle and Larry Nance, on and on down the list, how those guys develop, and then which free agents come and try to be the next stars here to complement the young core. So it's all finally going in the right direction here, Cam, with the Lakers. It's just going to be interesting to see how the specifics bear out over the next year or two.
Certainly a lot of storylines at that. All right, Mike, I'm going to go listen to Young Dro and maybe Baby Bash in the meantime before we chat again.
I would recommend I would recommend against it, but look, you're your own man. Do what you want to do. Just try to listen to us old heads. I would rather you go put on Midnight Marauders by A Tribe Called Quest and educate yourself.
You got it, man. All right, Mike Trudell, ladies and gentlemen. Follow him on Twitter, @LakersReporter. Mike, I know your schedule is obviously very busy right now, so I really appreciate you coming on, and all the best to you.
Cam, thank you. Best of luck with everything, and hopefully you'll see you sometime soon, buddy.
All right, there you have it. Mike Trudell, ladies and gentlemen. Many thanks to Mike Trudell, the Lakers reporter out there in L.A. Come on, Baby Bash, Young Dro, that's good stuff, Mike. Please chime in, folks, and defend me with my music choices from the 2000s. I think they're fantastic. But I digress. The big question here, are the LA Lakers a playoff team? And we have some commenters already weighing in, saying whether or not the Lakers can actually make some noise. Here we go, Richard Allen Harris Jr. The Lakers will not make the playoffs. They'll have a worse record than the 76ers. Whammy. That's a big one. Harris Rubenstein, of course, of Chat Sports, chiming in, saying the Lakers won't make it either. I'm giving the Lakers a one-year buffer to kind of figure things out with Ball and see how he can mesh in that offense. And then going forward, perhaps 2018, we could see a push by LA, and we'll see what happens going from there. So again, many thanks to Mike Trudell for coming on the show. Hopefully have him once the season gets going across the NBA. All right, time for the final word here. And this is a significant week across the National Football League. Not necessarily because of the football that's being played, but in terms of going forward and setting precedent in regards to the kneeling and the protesting that's going on right now. Because week 3, a lot of people argued that was more of just the players getting back at President Trump for his comments at the Alabama rally. Some people are arguing that no, it was more about inequality in America right now. We're going to find out in week 4, okay? If players are kneeling less than they were in week 3, that could indicate that a lot of the players just took Trump's comments personally and they wanted to get back at him. Or if the kneeling is consistent, heck, if there's more of it, then it seems as though the NFL players are actually buying into the national discussion that inequality is going on right now in America, and they want to do something about it. So I think this week is going to be very telling. So I think, of course you want to enjoy the football that goes on and what have you, really fun matchups and things like that. But I think this is something that we need to monitor because it's going to set the stage for the rest of the season. I would argue if there was a lot of kneeling and protesting on Sunday, there's going to be the same amount the rest of the year. So this one day in week 4 is going to be very, very significant. And it could set the stage for not just the NFL, but other leagues and how they operate in terms of protesting and trying to get their message across. Well, the NBA has weighed in. Commissioner Adam Silver saying we expect players to stand. And unlike the NFL, there is a rule in the NBA that you have to stand for the flag during the national anthem. Will that matter to some of these players? Will it matter when or if LeBron James does it? I mean, are you really going to punish LeBron James, the king? Are you going to punish Carmelo Anthony, who is going to certainly boost the stock of the Thunder in the West this year? So there could be some hypocrisy involved in that in the NBA, where if you have more fringe players kneeling and things like that, Adam Silver will go ahead and punish them. But if a big name does, well, maybe they won't, because of course they're making them tons of money. So it's going to be a very interesting situation with the NBA. We know where NASCAR stands right now. They are going to fire their drivers if indeed they do protest the national anthem. We know where professional golf stands right now. With the President's Cup, they did not protest the national anthem. So a lot at play here, a lot of variables. But again, week 4 in the NFL, very, very important in terms of this national discussion. All right, thanks so much for tuning into the Cam Rogers Show. We will see you on Monday morning. A lot to get to after a great weekend of football. See you then.